Welcome. Well, you are at home with Jim and Joy, and you are an important part of our EWTN family, and we are so delighted that you have welcomed us into your home. So today we have a beautiful guest, some of my favorites, Dr. Greg and Lisa Popcak, and they are founders of CatholicCounselors.com, a telecounseling program for Catholics to help with marriage, family, and personal problems, and Catholic Home, CatholicHOM.com, an online Catholic family formation platform. And there they discuss maintaining a good relationship with your adult children. Now, they've written a book called Having Meaningful, Sometimes Difficult Conversations with Your Adult Sons and Daughters. And this great book is available at EWTNRC.com. And they also have a wonderful radio show called More to Life. And I get to listen to that show on Monday mornings before I come here while I'm getting ready to come here, which is nice. And full of wisdom, full of grace, full of truth. And they do a great job in beautifying the bride of Christ and helping all of us along the way.
Well, this book, the topic, having meaningful, sometimes difficult conversations with your adult sons and daughters, anybody ever experienced that? Some of us more than others. And it's just filled with many examples from their shows, people calling in, from their counseling. I have such important matters I need to speak to my adult son and daughter about their faith, lapsing in faith, about their relationships with this one that they're with, sexual identity, and on and on and on. I need to speak with them. How do I speak with them? How do I communicate with them? Have we built up enough of a relationship and of deep soil that I can raise these important issues that really have to do with their very souls? And so they address all these things, give you good ways to communicate with your children, and really emphasize, you have to have a relationship, and you have to connect with them in so many other areas in order to have the conversation that you want to have. They're not projects, they're people, and maybe they don't feel you treat them like a person. How can I rebuild that relationship? How can this happen? How can I build up that soil so that we can talk and they know that I'm for them, that I love them, that you're the essence of what this is all about, as well as what I want to address. But it's about you, us, and a loving relationship. So we'll be right back. Plenty more to come, having meaningful, sometimes difficult conversations with your adult sons and daughters. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Welcome back. Well, you're at home with Jim and Joy, and today our guests are Dr. Greg and Lisa Popcak. Today we have Dr. and Lisa Popcak, and they are founders of the CatholicCounselors.com, a teleconferencing program for Catholics to help with marriage, family, and personal problems, and CatholicHOM.com, an online Catholic family formation platform. And today they're here to discuss maintaining a good relationship with your adult children. And they've written a book called Having Meaningful, Sometimes Difficult Conversations with Your Adult Sons and Daughters. And this great book, and I highly recommend it, is available at EWTNRC.com. Well, we are happy to have you here in person. I do listen to you on the radio with More to Life, and you do an outstanding job. So thank you for being who you are.
Great work that you do in so many ways.
You're so kind. Thank you. Wonderful.
We really mean it.
It's wonderful to celebrate Advent with you.
Yeah, and here we are, right? So we'll hit the floor running after all of this. So parenting, the fun and the joy and the sorrow and the love of it all. And we think parenting ends. It never ends.
No, we like to say you are a parent forever in the line of Melchizedek. Right?
That's true.
But it's really true. You know, we've had drilled into our head, 18, you cut them off, you're done.
Right.
No, you don't. You know, they're part of your heart. They're there forever. And they also need our guidance. You know, in Titus 2, we hear all about, the older men and women mentoring the younger men and women. Well, these are the people we're meant to mentor first.
We often think that just refers to other people in our church community. But really, it begins with our ability to mentor our children into a godly adulthood.
The problem is that I can remember when our children, our firstborn, got off and got married, and he wasn't asking me for advice. Right. And I said to Jim, he's not asking me. And Jim said, that should be your first clue. He knows what you're going to say. Like, Joy, he's heard it all. He knows where you're coming from, and he wants to do this on his own. Fail if he might, and that's it. What are you going to do? How difficult is that for parents?
Yeah, it's a different setup, right? I mean, once they hit a certain age, so you're involved, but it's a different kind of involvement versus being a young child. I mean, in adulthood, there's more choices. They're leaving and they're cleaving in their lives. What do you mean that we continue to disciple them?
Yes.
Well, we disciple them, first of all, with our witness, that we are continuing to grow. We don't think that we are, a completed project just because we're older than them or, have a little bit more experience than they do. So we're continuing to invite God into our own lives so that they can see God working in our lives and us doing that work of healing and growing. Secondly, I think we want to find ways to support them, and really the best way to do that is to ask them what kind of support they need. I think one of the big mistakes that parents often make is that, I'm going to come in and support you the way I want to support you, and you're going to enjoy it, and then we get mad at them because they don't. So really stepping back and recognizing that they need certain things from us, but they sometimes need us to give them the space to tell us what that might be. And then we can be there for them in those ways that, and we mentor them in a sense by supporting them in the areas that we can, certainly, and creating that space where they can make choices, and we're continuing to pray for them, and ideally, if they'll let us, with them, and as I said earlier, witnessing with our own lives, with the power of God working in us.
Being that friend, not in a let's go out and have beers kind of way. I mean, in some ways you can have that kind of social life with them. But if you had a friend who was hurting, heartbroken, needing some guidance, you wouldn't just come in and do stuff for them. You'd say,
or lecture them.
how do you, or lecture them. How are you doing? What do you need? Is there anything I can do for you? And we think that as parents, because we've been authority for so long, that we shouldn't be doing that. But these are adults. These are people we do want to have a loving, mentoring friendship with, a heart friendship with.
And I think that's where parents get in problems, is that they don't stop being that, controlling, being overly helpful, where then you say, you're changing and I'm changing, and this role is changing. Yeah. I mean, we're still mom and dad to you, but I have to respect you in your formation as being an adult. And you're going to make choices that maybe I don't agree with, and that will be hurtful to me, but I'm still going to love you and I'm still going to be with you. Yeah. But sometimes, if you don't do it my way, we pull up the stakes and the whole relationship gets jeopardized.
Yeah, and we can't make our whole relationship contingent upon our adult kids doing exactly what we want them to do, exactly the way we want them to do it and when we want them to do it. We have to let them kind of feel their own way, and we come alongside and support them however they'll let us. But letting them know that we want to support them, I think, is a really important message to send.
Well, that's what Jesus gave us the example of. He didn't come in and do what the Pharisees really wanted him to do, which is say, these are the rules, follow them. He guided, he ate with, he accompanied, he walked with, he developed relationship with every life he ever touched, and then he could form, then he could instruct.
Right, because it seems like one of the key themes in your book is, really understanding the soil in the relationship and the depth of the soil in order to address these things that are so critical for you that you really want to get across. And saying, do we really have enough revenue in that to do that?
Is the soil deep enough to plant the tree I want to plant in it? Or another way to put it, is the glass big enough to hold everything I want to pour into it. I mean, so we'll get parents calling the radio program, for example, all the time, or for that matter, the telecounseling practice, and they'll say, I wanted to talk to my kids about the faith, or I wanted to talk to my kids about the fact that they're living together, or whatever.
Whatever
right?
life choice. Yeah.
And we'll say, well, how often do you see them? Well, we see them, maybe once or twice, a month, or during the holidays or whatever. And I say, well, when you get together, what do you talk about? It's like, well, just current events and things that happen. It's like, well, to go from that conversation to a deep life choice conversation or a deep faith conversation, it's too big a jump. And so what you end up with, it's like trying to pour a gallon of milk into a shot glass, right? And it spills all over the place.
You end up with a big mess.
And then what we end up thinking as parents is, well, the problem isn't that the glass is too small. The problem is my technique. So maybe if I pour it faster this time, and then I end up with another mess. Or well, I'll pour it slower this time. Or I'll spin around 3 times and then pour it. And the problem is the glass isn't deep enough to contain what I want to pour into it. And so I've really got to step back and say, how do I work up to the kind of relationship I can have with my son or daughter that I can discuss these kinds of things, and it would seem like it makes sense. That it would be a natural, progression, as opposed to just staying in the shallow end of the pool most of the times when we do see each other, and then suddenly trying to push them into the deep end, and then wondering why they're getting offended.
And I'll say this: it's so important as we sit here together right before Christmas to remind parents. If you haven't been having these important conversations all year, please don't do it at the Christmas dinner table. It won't work. It'll just create, a hullabaloo in front of all the relatives and very hurt feelings that you'll spend months trying to put back together.
Well, and one thing on that, when we say that, parents get really disappointed. They think, well, but this was my one shot. This was the chance. And they think that because we're suggesting that they not use the holidays to have that big conversation, that we're telling them to do nothing. What we're telling them to do is to till the soil, to prepare the ground for the deeper conversation that they want to have later in the year, for example. Because, when we see that problem, the thing our kids are doing that we want to talk about it right now, we want to make sure that those seeds can be planted, that they can really take root. And so we want to use the other times when we're not having those conversations to really pull the rocks out, to pull the weeds out, to break up the ground so that we can plant those seeds. And so over the holidays, really creating some beautiful family memories, really being able to listen to them and biting your tongue when you want to say those things, and just being empathetic and receptive to what they're saying, and really using that time to build up relationship. That's doing something. That's doing an important something. It allows you to then keep building on that relationship to get to the point where you can plant those seeds that you want to later on.
What happens in relationships is everybody's so busy, right? And so your children, well, I can't see you, I can't get together with you, I'm just really busy. And we're busy, right? Our lives are busy and full. But everything has to be intentional. We have to intentionally make time to be. What are our children really saying to us when they're so busy?
When they say, I'm too busy.
I'm too busy.
Well, there are two things. It could be they're really busy.
Yeah.
And what they're really saying is, but if Mom and Dad, you could come alongside of this, if you can come to my daughter's skating practice and we could sit and talk, I could fit you in, because life is insane and they want a million things from me and I'm losing my mind.
And we've got to be flexible enough to be willing to do that.
Yeah, I need to be a flexible mom and come alongside where I can. That could be the genuine thing. But if you're getting that pushback of, I'm just using it as an excuse because I don't want to have to deal with you, then you have to say, okay, why are they avoiding? What are those rocks and weeds in our garden that have to be taken out?
You really have to reckon with the fact. In our garden. I mean, at that point, so if they're not letting you come alongside, if you're saying, well, I'll come to the kids' practice, or I'll come to, let me come alongside of you, and they're like, oh, well, no, because this and that. What they're really saying is that for some reason, my relationship with you is depleting me. I either don't feel supported, or I feel like I have to take care of you, or there's unresolved issues that we have to sort out. But for some reason, me being around you feels depleting. And it's really hard to not be offended by that and take that personally. I mean, nobody likes to hear that. But I think that if we're able to reckon with that and acknowledge that there are some issues there and commit to working through them, that gives us a way forward. But unfortunately, what we see most parents of adult kids doing is they just sort of say, oh, well, my kid stiff-armed me, so now I'm not going to come, I'm not going to try anymore. They don't appreciate everything I've done for them. I'm not going to bother. They want to be adults, I'm going to leave them alone. But what they're really saying is, there's stuff that I that we need to work through before I would be willing to let you into that level. Are you willing to work on that with me? And they don't come out and say it, but if we can respond to that stiff arming in that way, then the walls come down pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So then would we, if they don't say that, I mean, you're articulating what they might be seeing or feeling. You do a lot with phraseology and how to say things. So either we could, if we're not getting what we think we should get or deserve, then we can just chill out and say, I'm not going to go into this relationship. Or we just continue to lecture and go after them. But there's an in-between place, which is what you're saying. How could I serve you, or how could I be more helpful? How can I hear you? What's missing?
I would love to be.
You to articulate our relationship.
I'd love to be I'd love to be closer with you, but I see that there are things coming between us, and I don't necessarily know what they are. But I want you to know that I recognize that, and I really do want to work through that with you whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
You know, I want to be able to hear whatever it is that you say to me, you have to say to me. I want to be able to work on whatever you want to work on, and when you're ready to do that, I'm here for you.
So when they say, well, you never listened to me since I was a kid.
You know,
but that's good. It's progress, right?
Because now they're telling you something.
Right. I'm sorry you felt like that.
I'm listening now.
Right.
And you know what? There is a phrase we are actually allowed to say as parents, and it does not diminish us. And diminish us. It's, I'm really sorry.
Right.
I'm sorry if my own woundedness or the busyness of my life or the fact that I didn't have 8,000 parenting books that you guys have now.
Right.
I messed up.
Right.
But I love you.
Yeah.
And I do want to work through that with you. I want to help us heal that so that we can have a relationship.
Yeah. And for us in the
That's
busy,
big.
and we're busy and they're busy, we'll say, because I just miss them. I mean, I just want to see you. And so why don't we meet halfway?
Yep.
You know, I'll meet you halfway. We'll, you go an hour, we'll go an hour, and we'll hook up and just grab
halfway.
dinner and just sit with each other and be with each other and then clip and go our way. Don't make anything big out of it. You know?
Because we
Just singing and
often
being.
really think it has to be those big family dinners that we had with our grandma or whatever. No, it has to be where can we meet each other, fill that gap with each other, meet each other's needs.
One thing that we've found is the technology is a great way to fill some of those gaps. I mean,
thank God for it,
so one of our adult kids lives in Orlando, and we're in Steubenville, Ohio, and so but we'll have a weekly family meal with them via FaceTime or Zoom. Where we'll just we'll have our dinner and we'll put the computer on the table and they'll eat their meal and we'll eat together and we'll just talk and just have a family meal.
We get to Google at our grandson and we get to have these conversations and we get to see how much he's learned, how much language he's learned that week, and we tell funny stories. And I'd still love to be able to hug them, but they're there.
But there's a touch point you can connect.
We do connect, and it's a wonderful thing to be able to do.
And there are people who, when we give this advice on the show, think, well, I don't know how to use that technology, or I don't know. Well, I mean, we can learn. I mean, and it's just a matter of being willing to step outside of our comfort zone for the sake of that relationship. Sometimes that's another important thing, that we want our relationship with our adult kids to fit entirely within our comfort zone. And their life is either too big or too different for it to fit there. And then we draw the line that says, unless you're willing to fit in the areas that I'm comfortable operating in, then I won't have a relationship with you. And that pushes them away.
Right.
And
it might mean, and we've done this with our kids, sitting at the ball field while he's in a tournament, and we're there
for
5 hours.
and hours in the heat and the rain.
But we're just there. We just want to be there. I just wanted to hang out with you today. And it meant being with all these other people, but I got to see you. I got to watch you coach. I got to,
and Joy, we have friends who have a large 7 daughters. And when their first daughter was playing softball when she was like 7 years old, they were lucky. They lived in the same town as all their parents and aunts and uncles. And they'd have 100 people at that darn softball game. But my kids who had no relatives living near them said, oh, aren't they lucky? Oh, isn't that wonderful? So now I know, I better have my seat on that bleacher and watching him play t-ball or those things, because it does matter.
No,
it doesn't have to be always the big fancy meal.
Right. And it could be at the concession stand, we're having a hot dog and chicken fingers together, and isn't this great? But it's together, and that's the point of rebuilding and restoring.
We're going to take a break at this point and hold you over for the final segment. It's great speaking with you. I'm sure people are really benefiting. Having meaningful, sometimes difficult conversation with your adult sons and daughters. How critical that is, how much we desire those, how much we need to evaluate ourselves and how we have been communicating, how we are communicating. So we'll be right back, plenty more to come. Don't go away. Back with Greg and Lisa Popcak, addressing such an important topic of having conversations, sometimes difficult conversations, with our adult sons and daughters. One of the key things we hear all the time, you hear it as well, is just, the brokenheartedness. My child's left the faith, left the Catholic faith. How could this possibly be? I mean, I took them to church, they received the sacraments, and it's like they've left the faith or they just don't seem to get it. And you speak about being sacramentalized and not necessarily evangelized. What do you mean?
Well, yeah, so actually we got a call on the radio program the other day from a mom who said, my daughter is Catholic, but she's living with her boyfriend and she's doing this and she's... And I said, well, let's step back a second. When you say that she is Catholic, tell me, does she go to church? Does she live her faith in other ways? Oh, well, no. But we took her to church growing up and we, she went to Catholic school. And, well, but what is she doing now? Because the point we were trying to make with this mom is that she was engaging her daughter on the level of one person of faith to another person of faith. Mm-hmm. And she was really assuming that her daughter was better developed spiritually and had more of a relationship with God than her life actually showed. Mm-hmm. And so, in the book we really talk about the importance of not just assuming that because our kids were sacramentalized or because we took them to church that they ever developed a relationship with Christ. And that we have to look at the way they're actually living their life and the choices that they're making and meet them there instead of just saying, hey, the church teaches thus and such and you're not doing that. Yeah. Because if we start there and their life isn't reflecting a desire to live out those principles, then they're just going to tune us out and think that we don't know where we're coming from. So, so really understanding where they're at in their faith.
And God did that for us, right? There was all of this religion of the time. And he realized they're not getting it. I guess I better become incarnate and actually spend time with them and love them and show them physically how loved they are, how cherished they are, and who they were created to be like. And so being able to move past that, they should because they went to Catholic school. They should because I got up every Sunday morning and got them to Mass. They should because we did the rosary every day. There is no should. There is what is. But we're always called to introduce them to a relationship with God. And with us as a reflection of that, one of healing and one of love, and really teaching them what they deserve, and that they deserve better than what they're settling for.
And you don't want them to have a relationship with God rule-based. You don't want them to have a relationship with you rule-based. Right. I mean, you want a relationship that's intimate. You want a relationship that's growing, that's alive, that's organic, that it's like, and it's becoming, right? It's conversion.
Well, and I think sometimes that's a wake-up call to me as the parent to say, what kind of relationship have I had with God and the church? Has it really been a relationship, or has it been more about doing the rules, following the things? And if I haven't developed that relationship with God myself, then I haven't been able to give that to my kids, and that's where I want to start. I want to start looking at how do I relate to God in the church? Is it a real relationship? Do I really feel God's presence in my life? Do I hear His voice? And do I know how to respond to His call in my life? Because if I don't, then I'm not going to be able to convey that to my kids, and I want to start there.
Greg and Lisa, thank you so much.
Excellent.
Thank God we have tomorrow. There's so much more to this, such an important topic of the ongoing conversation. Hopefully we can have that conversation with our adult sons and daughters, and so many issues to kind of look at. And as we're focused upon our children, say, these are so critical things for you to know, it comes back on us. And it kind of says, wow, did I teach properly? Did I have conversations? Did I put the person first, or just other things first in this relationship? How can we build now? How can we get more soil to plant the conversations we really need to have? Having meaningful, sometimes difficult conversations with your adult sons and daughters is available at EW10RC.com. God bless you. God bless all of your loved ones. You're an important part of this family. You're never alone. You're always at home with Jim and Joy. Bye now.